Hey guys, how you going? Hey guys, before I start, I would like to thank Shannon, Catherine and Michelle, and possibly Michael in case I forgot. I wasn't getting notifications from PayPal. A couple of people have just donated. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thank you to all my PayPals and everyone for just watching. I really do appreciate all of you. Hey guys, just a couple of housekeeping things first. Just understand that I can't talk about a lot of stuff on here on YouTube. So YouTube at the moment is just really unsure, you know. So, and I'm not going to be able to please everyone all the time. So if there's a video you don't want to watch, don't watch it, guys, and then, you know, come back if there's something that interests you. The other thing is, anyone who has been on my Facebook page in the last week or so may have noticed that I went off. I did do it by mistake on something I misread, but, and I'm not making excuses, this person has been gaslighting me for years. They have been trying to debunk everything I say, and in a very condescending manner. So anyone who did witness that, that's what that is about, and it's been going on for years, not just the last couple of weeks. This was also the person who was trying to push me into wearing a mask last week, and then I read something wrong and I swore at her and called her a Nazi. And she has commented since then, trying to debunk more that I've said. Now, this person has made me feel like I'm crazy. She has called me paranoid. So please understand that I don't just snap at people. There is a reason. If I've snapped at someone, things have happened before that to push me to the point, because I've got a lot of patience and I normally don't go at anyone like that. And I wouldn't have if I had read the post properly. But it has made me realise a lot of things. There are some people, okay, if you get a notification and it sort of makes you feel funny, like strange, that is probably a toxic person, like in a bad way, funny in a bad way. If you see a notification from someone, and I don't know how to explain it, but I get this feeling when I see the notification from this person, and I know straight away it's not going to be good. So yeah, I just thought I'd just explain that. There is more of a backstory to that than most people have seen. It was going on for years. They give it a rest for, you know, they might give it a rest for a year or two, but they'll keep that coming back time after time after time. Okay, now let's get on to the Glamis calling. Dear reader, I'm going from, okay, this one's in February 2021. Now, I did read this one in February 2021, but they have posted other things. Okay, the first one was, at the direction of Glamis, or whatever, however you want to pronounce it, Mr. Clover has been recalled to Brussels and will not be travelling to DC in the foreseeable future. As calm night is now in effect, access to all frequencies is revoked and Luxembourg Cathedral is implementing cold silence over Washington until further notice. Have a care and honour your sacred duty, for ancient promises must be kept. It is our prayer that wisdom, humility and love shall inform your approach to governance. Remember that you are stewards and not despots, and that your role is to serve your nation, not rule over it. Many souls watch over your people, and the eyes of eternity are upon you. Signed, Somerset Belanoff. And then they put the welcome in here, and this sort of kind of explains what this is about. And you can believe it or you don't have to believe it. This is up to you. This is just a very obscure website that's it was YIG that first came across it, that is YIG, YIG, and then Deception Bytes also touched on it, and I just kept sort of following it. So we'll see what's in here, if there's anything interesting at all. Welcome to the information portal. Dear reader, since this site became public, there's been a great deal of speculation online about the purpose of the site and our actions immediately after we were exposed by content providers in both the United States and Australia. Is anyone else doing it in Australia? Anyway, it's been a very busy year, and though there's been some communication over the past year, we, or more forthrightly, I haven't addressed some specific questions that you've asked. This landing page seemed the best place to address these questions, since it's the page that we initially used as an introduction for our intended audience prior to our exposure to Glamis calling as a temporary communication site. Although the content below addresses questions specific to this site and our actions immediately following our wide public exposure, we will issue a more expansive FAQ in the near future to cover other questions we've received. Why did we use a basic blog to house important communications? Why did the archive messages go back to 2016 when the blog was created in 2019? I have got this question over and over again. So let's hear what they have to say. Glamis Calling was originally launched in 2019 as a temporary interstitial portal for the World Governing Council delegates, electors and approved associates during the overhaul of our secure communications platforms and communication archive site, which was hosted on the deep web. You can find references to these upgrades in our archive, some of which were gradually implemented beginning in May of 2019. Via separate online communications, our associates had been directed to the Glamis Calling blog, and we provided an introduction that still exists in italic font at the bottom of this post. Glamis Calling includes an archive of directives and posts going back to 2016. Communications prior to 2016 were not copied over to this temporary site. Okay, initial plans for this blog. When we launched Glamis Calling, we expected it would be up for a few months at most. Though we were aware that others outside of our intended audience might stumble across the site, we opted to accept that risk in return for allowing easy access to our associates abroad, whose sign-in credentials had been suspended at a certain point while the official platforms were being upgraded. We traded secure access for ease of access. We used a format that we could set up quickly and that could be easily navigated by our intended audience. We were confident that our more sensitive communications were crafted in such a manner that those outside our intended audience would not be able to decode them. As part of our effort to upgrade our communication systems, we hired a new brilliant Chief of Technology, Tiamat Marbani, who literally added new dimensions to our communications platforms. The innovations and upgrades are wonderful, but though some were implemented in mid-2019, the more expansive upgrades wouldn't be fully coded until the first quarter of 2020. This delay meant that every day this site remained up, we continued to risk exposure. Each time we voted to extend the timeline for implementing the improvements on our secure platforms, we also voted to accept the risk that this blog would be discovered by a larger audience, and each time we voted to accept the risk, we effectively became more comfortable with the idea of exposure. Still, as we worked to add new features to our upgraded platforms, uneventful months rolled by without anyone from the general public taking notice of our blog. Keep in mind, all of this was occurring within the context of an awakening and a raising of consciousness. After all, and we had already begun to discuss what it would look like to work more openly, also through the other means, also spearheaded by Tiamat, we had some indications we would soon enter a new phase of more public engagement. Though we expected some form of engagement, we didn't expect it to happen so quickly and on such a large scale, and candidly, we were not sufficiently prepared for the attention that ultimately came our way when we were exposed. When the exposure occurred, the exposure of Glamis calling and our immediate actions. When the exposure occurred, we weren't sure exactly what was happening at first. We were simply aware that our blog was being viewed by thousands of visitors, and we were aware that we'd been mentioned by several high-profile content creators on various social media platforms. It's important to understand that this exposure occurred in the middle of an ugly, complex conflict with some dangerous characters from within and outside of the World Governing Council. Our immediate concern was that the exposure was connected to that conflict. Within the first 24 hours of our blog being viewed by the first massive wave of visitors, we ascertained that the large number of visitors to our site was the result of an organic public curiosity, driven largely by the fact that influential content creators had mentioned us and that the attention to our blog was completely unrelated to the aforementioned conflict. In those first hours after our site went viral, we had a myriad of questions. Was the Glamis calling blog the only thing that was exposed, or were our sensitive systems compromised? What about our staging and testing sites, which were being used to test our new platforms? Was the attention on social media simply the result of curious seekers, or were powerful adversaries creating a diversion whereby they would attack more sensitive elements of Luxembourg Cathedral while our attention was focused on Glamis calling public exposure? We needed to take steps to protect our information systems and assess the extent of our danger, determine whether we'd been breached, whether data was lost, and whether our property, or importantly our people, were in immediate physical danger. In the first hours following the first wave of visitors, we took a few precautionary measures that were not well understood by the public and until now have not been explained by us. First, we moved Shadowline into place, checked the integrity of internal systems and local power stations. Jabis. Example, Jabis? Then we reached out to critical partners in the US and UK to ensure they hadn't been harmed or breached. We took Glamis calling offline, which caused quite a stir. Now, if you're thinking quantum computing and stuff, and maybe a quantum internet, the new internet and stuff, this is how I'm looking at this. As I said, I don't know if this is real or not, but I'm sort of looking at it from the point of view of where I come from, you know what I mean? We also took 2 adversarial websites offline. One was a site based in Europe, owned by people who, over the years, have physically stalked me and have employed various schemes to unearth information about me. I have certain routines that they become aware of, and several times I've been approached from a distance because they haven't summoned the nerve to get very close to me by their associates and investigators. Once I was approached while visiting a cemetery, and once I was guest speaker at a university graduation. We played a game of cat and mouse over the years. I've never felt threatened and always believed these people to be harmless. Nevertheless, I needed to be sure they weren't being used by more nefarious characters. The second site we took offline was owned by a Los Angeles-based marketing firm which had set up an elaborate hoax website featuring my daughter and a few World Governing Council associates. We believed the hoax was intended as a viral marketing campaign for a restaurant that ultimately failed to launch. Was that Cannibal Club? Could be. In the end, we determined the marketing firm was not connected in any way to the aforementioned conflict with the lower chamber, but it likely contributed to the heightened awareness of our family and indirectly to the World Governing Council. When we took these sites offline, the public noticed and commented okay. I can't read that. Vocafariously? I'm not sure how that's pronounced, guys. The public's intuitive and I think reasonable reaction was that we were censoring content deemed to be critical of our efforts. But in fact, we needed to assure ourselves that the creators of these critical sites were not aligned with malicious characters in the lower chamber, with whom we were locked in what amounted to a literal life and death struggle. We took a hard look at the content creators of these sites and determined that none of these people were connected to our conflict with lower chamber members. Rather, the exposure of Glamis calling was the result of truth seekers doing what they're supposed to do. Wow. I reported on this in my old Hev123 Truthseeker channel when I had 38,000. I was only small though. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'm the only one in Australia who's mentioned this. Probably not. It's very strange. We allowed the adversarial European site to resume activity and publication. I think that's the one that says they're cannibals and that Vladimir Putin is scared of her. Within a day or so, and we came to an understanding with the Californian marketing firm that had created the hoax restaurant site. We deleted the content of their site and they agreed not to recreate it. We, in turn, agreed not to pursue the matter further. I believe the European-based exposed Belanoff site is still in operation, but my staff no longer keeps up with their content. Yeah, there was a guy called Michael Rothschild too, who claims to debunk conspiracy theories. He's a Rothschild. I don't know how people, like, just be careful who you listen to, guys. Not quite business as usual, and he also says he's not a Rothschild, right? He's not one of them, but I do believe he is. Okay, not quite business as usual. Once we determined that all was well, we brought Glamis Calling back online and issued a statement to our new audience, acknowledging that we'd entered a new phase of engagement. Committing to a more inclusive, open approach, we opted not to delete any of the archived communications that had been copied over from the secure site, and they are still available here for your review. And there is a lot on this website, okay, guys? So you can come to Glamis Calling and you can go all the way back through all their posts, and they're very interesting. And some of them they're so obscure that it must be talking in code somehow, and we can't work it out. Oh, well, I can't work it out. Maybe someone can, but I'm having trouble. Okay, while all this was happening, our lower chamber adversaries took notice. Our intelligence indicated they were poised to interfere with several social media influencers who were reporting on us, but we don't understand the motivation behind this intended interference. We moved Shadowline into place to ensure these influencers would be able to operate freely, but there were some close calls. We understand these social media content creators are critical of us, and perhaps we may count some of them as adversaries. But we also understand that they have an important role in free speech, which is a crucial component of any free society. Though some of their reporting misses the mark for accuracy, we understand this is in a large part due to our historical secrecy. If we have been less than transparent, it is inevitable that much of our work will only be seen through a glass darkly. In our initial communication to the public following the exposure, we stated it was our intention to leave the site up for a time, but that we would eventually take it offline and move quietly back into the shadows. Ironically, just a few days after our viral exposure occurred, we completed the upgrades on our secure platforms and migrated our communications to these platforms. Sensitive communications are now handled through our upgraded systems and for the most part the blog you're reading now. Glamis Calling is used to communicate with our new audience. It is our hope that the public will understand our work sometimes requires us to keep some communications private, and it is out of necessity and not malice that we maintain a secure and separate platform for sensitive communications. That being said, we will from time to time use this site to mirror certain communications to world leaders, especially when we want them to know that you're watching. In getting to know our readers, it has become apparent to me and to my staff that your goals are very closely aligned with ours, and despite appearances, we've made good progress in supporting our common goals. In the current socio-political environment, it may appear as though we're taking one step forward and 10 steps back, but rest assured, things are not as bad as they seem. Kind of like the art of war. Make it look like you're losing when you're actually winning. I don't know. I'm just theorising, you know. An uncharted future. Soon after our initial publication was released, one of our new audience members, I call her Firefly, said that she hoped we would keep the site up as long as possible. Firefly was the first big-name content creator, thought leader to bring attention to Glamis Calling. I wonder if that was Deception Bites, because she was big. She was bigger. Just before she got kicked off YouTube, like taken down off YouTube, sorry, like a lot of other people did. She had 80,000 followers. She was up there. She was way up there. Anyway, I'll continue, because that's how I think Firefly might be her. We believe our exposure was in large part due to her reporting. As a content creator, she is fearless like a tiger. In her reporting, she holds nothing back in her opposition to tyranny. Unlike many content providers, she doesn't cater to the expectations of her audience. Rather, she reports her findings as she sees them. Her request that we keep the site up was in fact the opposition saying, "If you have nothing to hide, stay in the light. Let us inspect your work product." We felt that we could not, in good faith, refuse her request, and this site will remain online for the foreseeable future. I commented on here, but the only thing I said was I was interested in learning more. And that's all I said, I believe. So somewhere in here, if you can find comments, I don't know if mine was approved or not. I never actually saw it in the comments. But that it's like, you can comment. There are comment sections here. I hope this post helps illustrate our commitment to work with as much transparency as possible. We appreciate the feedback left as comments attached to our historical posts, and I assure you none are ever deleted. Okay, well, it must be there. All feedback is read by my staff and your comments are included in a report that I review on a regular basis. I'm grateful for the opportunity to engage with you and look forward to a better year in 2021. Somerset Belanoff. Okay, so that's just, it's interesting, especially if you've gone over. I have some of the Somerset Belanoff and Glamis calling videos here on this channel from way back. If you want to go and have a look, you can go and have a look, because I pretty much went through nearly the whole thing. Okay, and I even signed up while I was doing it. Okay, so the language shown in italics was used to introduce this blog to our original audience when we rolled it out in January 2019. As such, it includes some of the original introductory language copied over from the secure site. The note about audio files being updated in March 2019 was added because original audience members needed to switch to Kestrel and Tanager nodes in order to properly interpret the recordings. I don't know what Kestrel and Tanager nodes are. It's also important to note that the reference "betrayal is death" was a communication to our original target of World Governing Council delegates and electors and is not directed at the general public. At the time this blog was posted, we did not anticipate that it would be read by the general public. When we realised thousands of people were regularly visiting this blog, we considered removing this reference as it might be misunderstood by the public, and we didn't want to cause alarm. However, we believe a fair reading of the introduction below would lead the reader to understand that the audience referenced is a specific population of delegates and electors who are contractually bound to the directives of the upper chamber. We restate for emphasis, the general public is beyond the purview of Glamis. The World Governing Council and the upper chamber in this onerous reference does not apply. And it says, this site serves as the official external communication vehicle for the World Governing Council and the Wet and Upper Chamber. If you've been directed here for instruction, note that most messages are intentionally obscure. Audio files are up to date as of March 2019, and underlying messages alternate between Kestrel and Tanager modes. If you have difficulty understanding a particular message, you may reach out to Luxembourg Cathedral on Node 9 of the Forgotten Frequency. After authentication, you may receive additional instruction. In the upper chamber, we often say debate is required, respectful dissent is allowed, and betrayal is death. Delegates and electors must bear this in mind while reading the instructions written herein. By the time information is posted here, the debate is over and the dissent has been noted. Best regards, Somerset Belanoff. It's very interesting. And then the newest one was in April. I get emails for these. They're normally very short, so I do try to wait and see if more come up so I can post like a longer video. This one is Fourth Bridge. Arundel, you have vibe sat and may proceed. Now, this is what I mean. These are obscure. They're very... this is some kind of coded talk. And you can go back and you can go way back and you'll see some really strange things. See that? Like, read these. Lamashtu is strong and Pazuzu wanes in false symmetry. Windsor Tower unleash the storm. Begin posting and expect major impact. All will awaken. It goes through like they're just... Shemiza, rejoice on Mount Hermon. Kiss the new dawn for all is prepared. Like there's all... they're very, very strange. Pig caller. Pleasures of the flesh on a pig summer night. The past is foggy, but the present is bright. Sleek ones and fat ones, hush, don't you cry. Lovely rooters squeal when the caller is nigh. So there's some of them you can leave a comment. Look. Do you see that? So you can comment. I think you have to either register or log in to do so. I'm not sure. Maybe not. And then when you do that, it gives you related fiery angels. What is that? We saw heavens break. Fiery angels kiss the dawn. All the world asleep. Again, look, just you can keep going. Are you awake? Let us for a moment speak plainly, for it is not often in these turbulent times when we can speak openly about such things. Likely the time will come again soon when we will move back to the shadows, for there is yet much work to do. For now, though, many are awake and listening, so we may continue our exchange openly. Your adversaries will not understand, and even if they read, the words will be meaningless to them. In these last few years you have awakened. You have risen up and created change, and you have resisted tyranny. You have tuned in, and your vibratory frequencies have become heightened. Make no mistake, though, the change did not make you, rather you made the change. Recently, a lovely angel said, do they know we've learnt to decode? Yes, you have. It's quite evident that you've become proficient at solving puzzles. But please remember, your strength is not in solving puzzles. Your greatest strength may be your love of all that is good, your love of freedom, and your inherent belief that tomorrow will be better than yesterday. By contrast, the greatest weakness of your adversaries is that they have lost the ability to love anything outside of themselves. In their hubris, they are asleep. They have no In their hubris, they are asleep. And asleep, they have no awareness whatsoever that their habitat is receding. Swamp striders asleep and rendered deaf by their own spell. And meanwhile, more judges are appointed, while swamp striders hiss and yowl at every tweet. They are blind to the good that prevails. Your advocate is a great distractor, and your adversaries are very easily distracted. Be of good cheer and keep your eyes open. And then there was the illness and unrest from last year, which I did read as well. Okay, and I did have a go at this, but okay, illness and unrest. I'll read it again anyway. I wish to begin by sending a warm welcome and glad greetings to all who've begun monitoring or following this website. This is Glamis calling to all of you, wherever you may be, hoping that you and yours are safe and well in this time of anxious unrest. It is my sincerest hope that I may convey some measure of comfort, though we are far from victory in neither of our most recent endeavours. Over the past several months, we've received many messages from our new audience. And this site has had hundreds of thousands of visitors. The World Governing Council staff now reads all comments posted to this blog, and contrary to the way it may appear, none are ever deleted. Yeah, that's because I couldn't see mine, that's right. And I don't remember where it was, so I have to go over my own video to find out where it was or go through all of these posts. Okay, only those that we specifically approve for publication are visible to the general public. But rest assured, if you have offered a comment, it's still there. Some that have been approved for publication have been responded to by members of my staff, while others remain in queue and will be addressed in a more thoughtful post that I will be making soon. On behalf of my staff, I thank you for the thoughtful input. My outreach planning has been significantly delayed by the onset of the worldwide coronavirus outbreak, which has occupied much of our resources. Along those lines, and in response to the many questions you have posted on the subject, I'd like to say a few things related to this. It is real, it is not a false, If you haven't personally been affected, chances are someone you know has been. I lost family to this disease early on in the course, when Italy was hit very hard, so I know somewhat firsthand how devastating this can be. It won't last forever. My personal belief is by the end of August, the rate of new infections will have slowed to the point where it will be safe to travel and gather together again with loved ones. It's not a prediction, just a strong feeling. I wonder which August they were talking about, because they weren't talking about last year. 3, based on our research, I believe this was inadvertently released, to the population due to poor control protocols. Having done a pretty thorough investigation into the genetic origins of it, it appears to bear all the hallmarks of a naturally evolved one and does not appear to bear the hallmarks of an engineered weaponed one. Here's the chilling truth. An intentionally engineered one would likely have killed a much larger segment of the world population because the attack, grasp and penetrate mechanism of it isn't as effective as it might have been. The new one is horrible and deadly, but not as deadly as others that I've seen, and was specifically designed for mass destruction. Now, just excuse me if I'm not reading every word, because there's some things I have to be careful with what I say. When I have this conversation with friends, colleagues and families, the first question that always arises is, if this came from nature, why was it in a lab? The answer is that many research centres have live viruses and other nasty things in their labs. Usually the purpose is to study various biological attack mechanisms, then try to design defence agents. If there's any kind of silver lining, it may be that this, horrible as it is, will move us to develop a broad spectrum antivirus which might save us from potentially more lethal stuff at some point in the future. And I do not believe they're talking about jabs or anything. So this is important to know, because living with the ravages of this is bad enough without having to hear that someone somewhere is intentionally targeting us. I know due to the evil behaviour we've seen from so many of those in power, many of you are beyond trusting, and you've come to believe that every natural disaster, every illness and every tragedy is intentionally designed to target humanity. Indeed, some of the comments left on this site specifically accuse me of leading a worldwide conspiracy to destroy all that is good. I've seen enough evil in my life that I can empathise with those who no longer trust, so I won't try to dissuade you. It's okay if you don't trust me, or the media, or your elected officials. I sincerely ask you, though, as a fellow sentient being, please do not lose hope. Please consider that there's always been a struggle between those who wish to control and harm and those who wish to live in peace. But today, more of us are aware that it's a struggle. Within the past 100 years, we've seen the rise of totalitarianism in various forms. And though Hitler, Stalin and Pol Pot are gone, the struggle continues. But please consider this. The fact that some choose to fight against totalitarianism means that some have not been corrupted. While there is struggle, there is hope. And I believe that this is talking about people in the ones helping. Cities on fire. Subsequent to our first encounters a few months ago, my staff promised to be as forthcoming as possible in responding to your queries, particularly within the context of current events and world governance. Indeed, the wake of those earlier encounters, we've engaged in some brief, though I hope meaningful dialogue. In light of that promise, I'd like you to consider the civil unrest playing out in various places throughout the world, but particularly within the larger cities of the United States. The World Governing Council has been collecting intelligence on these activities through a variety of methods. We are specifically prohibited by our own chamber rules from taking any action within the United States, where such action might interfere or conflict with the rights established by the US Constitution. In another post, I'll provide more information regarding our relationship with the US. For our purposes here, it's sufficient to state that we are working with the US authorities to track individuals believed to be involved in the financing of activities such as trafficking and the funding of professional provocateurs. Here's a few questions to consider. When you watch live coverage of these things, you will see the majority of protesters are dressed in regular street clothes. No masks, no backpacks. They're walking together with others who are similarly dressed. They may be chanting or carrying signs, but they appear to be regular people from the neighbourhood. From our experience, which includes members of my staff who have attended many of these things to observe the situation on the ground, people in this first group are hurting. Yep, the ones who are organically there, genuinely, they are. They are frightened and they are sincerely asking for change in police governance. I think we all are. They are grieving, and whether one agrees with all of their positions or not, we respect them as feeling, searching people, and we hope they find comfort. On the other hand, you'll also notice, especially after night falls, there are a few individuals dressed all in black with matching backpacks, armed with rocks or bricks, and sometimes even wearing gas masks. If you were to attempt to engage them in conversation, they respond with slogans and venom. Why have we seen the same individuals from the second group in Seattle and Los Angeles on different days? Why do people from the first group say to people from the second group, you need to get out of here, you're going to get us all chopped? If the people from group 2 are travelling around the US as professional, who is paying for their airfare? Why do bricks appear in front of businesses when the business owners didn't order them? Who paid for them and the delivery? Oops. In the United States, whose interests are served better if the economy deteriorates even further? Pretty much the elite. In the spirit of transparency, I'd like to share with you the attached document which was delivered and handed to the intended recipient on May 31st. Until next time, may God be with you and protect you always. Okay, dear Miss President T, the World Security Office has arrested 2 suspect agents of the DS near Puerto La Cruz, Venezuela. We are seeking extrajudicial transfer of these individuals, who are identified in the Balgowdy working papers as Target Oswego and Target Charlie 4. Tattoos and fingerprints are a match. Ties to that in US and Maduro administration in Venezuela are confirmed, and we believe targets are responsible for facilitating financial support for the escalating insurrection events in the US. Oswego and Charlie 4 are currently being held offshore in international waters. We are prepared to transport targets to Guabedo Station for further processing, but as both individuals are citizens of the US, we seek your permission to extract. Our mutual friend Mr. Clover will be in the 3rd row during your speaking engagements over the next week. Please provide him direction via our usual protocol. We believe the removal of these agitators will be a significant step toward draining swamps on both sides of the Atlantic. Signed under my hand and privy sealed at Castille, Belgium, 30th day, year of our Lord, 2020. Wow. Okay. So that's interesting. Where'd the rest of it go? Okay. So, see, this is what... You've got bloggers all over the world. Okay? And there's more, my dear ones in the United States. Yeah, so let me know what you think, guys. And if I haven't gone over, because I did videos on my other channel, but I'm not sure that I actually brought them all over. And I think I've deleted a lot of my old videos accidentally. I've got to try and do some sort of recovery on my hard drive of my laptop, so because I lost a lot of videos. Anyway, guys, you can let me know what you think down below, what you think of all this, and please always be respectful, and whether you disagree or agree, you know, just let us know. And yeah, that's it for today. I hope you have a good morning, afternoon or evening wherever you are, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay, guys, bye.